Good evening. Over the weekend, a state legislative contest in the Deep South produced a result that is reverberating far beyond a single district line on a map. In Louisiana's House District 60, voters selected a new state representative in a special election. On paper, the district had been considered reliable Republican terrain. In the 2024 presidential race, it supported Donald Trump by roughly 13 percentage points. The district had also backed him in the two previous presidential cycles. Despite that recent voting history, Democrat Chastity Verrett Martinez won the seat with approximately 62% of the vote. Her Republican opponent received about 38%. That is a margin of roughly 24 points in a district that, at the top of the ticket, had leaned solidly Republican. The margin is what immediately drew attention. Special elections often come with lower turnout and are frequently shaped by local factors. Candidate familiarity, neighborhood networks, and issue salience can outweigh national dynamics. But even within that context, a swing of this scale stands out. Political observers across party lines have described it not as a narrow upset, but as a decisive shift. Martinez's campaign focused heavily on local roots and community engagement. She emphasized her upbringing in Bayou Sorrow and highlighted volunteer work and service connected to victims' assistance and local organizations. Her messaging centered on family issues, day-to-day economic concerns, and district-level priorities rather than national partisan themes. Another factor that has been noted is campaign spending. Public reports indicate that Martinez raised and spent less than her Republican opponent. Despite that financial disadvantage, she secured a commanding victory. In a political environment where outside spending and donor networks often dominate headlines, that outcome has prompted questions about the relative weight of money versus message in low turnout contests. The Louisiana race did not occur in isolation. Since the beginning of President Trump's second term, Democrats have flipped 26 state legislative seats nationwide through special elections. These are not regular November contests with full turnout and synchronized statewide ballots. They are off-cycle races, often triggered by resignations, appointments, or vacancies. Just weeks earlier, in January, Democrats won a state Senate seat in Texas in a district that President Trump had carried decisively in the 2024 election by approximately 17 points. Despite that recent presidential margin, the Democratic candidate prevailed in the runoff. The Texas race drew particular scrutiny because of the financial imbalance. Reports indicated that the Republican candidate outspent the Democrat by roughly a 20-to-1 ratio. Even with that advantage, the Republican lost. The Democratic candidate, Taylor Reett, defeated the Trump-backed Republican by about 14 points in a district that had not elected a Democrat in decades. When viewed together, the Louisiana and Texas outcomes reflect a pattern. Democratic candidates winning special elections in districts that had recently favored Republicans by double-digit presidential margins. Political analysts have cautioned against overgeneralizing. Special elections are unique. Turnout is smaller. The electorate can skew older, more motivated, or more ideologically engaged. Campaign timelines are compressed, and local issues can loom larger than national ones. At the same time, when multiple contests in different states move in the same direction, strategists from both parties begin to look for broader explanations. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis addressed the issue publicly, noting that special elections do not always predict general election outcomes. However, he also acknowledged that swings of this magnitude should not be ignored and that Republicans should take a clear-eyed view of the political environment. Data cited in the material indicates that across the 2025-2026 special elections referenced, Democrats have performed on average about 12 points better than baseline expectations. Baseline in this context refers to how those districts voted in recent statewide or presidential races. Beyond the election results themselves, polling data adds another layer of context. A recent poll referenced in the material shows that 59% of voters disapprove of President Trump's handling of the economy. According to that data, it represents his lowest economic approval rating since his first term began in 2017. Historically, economic approval has been closely tied to a president's broader political standing, especially among independent voters and working-class voters. Analysis cited from CNN's Harry Enten highlights a notable shift among voters without a college degree. In the 2024 election, President Trump won that group by approximately 14 points. Current approval data shows him underwater among the same demographic by roughly 9 points, a swing of about 23 points. That shift appears to extend beyond presidential approval into congressional preferences. Republicans carried non-college voters by about 13 points in 2024. More recent data suggests that advantage has narrowed to around 4 points. At the same time, Democrats continue to hold a substantial lead among college-educated voters, estimated at around 20 points. The combined effect is a narrowing of the Republican edge among non-college voters without a corresponding shift among college-educated voters toward the GOP. For strategists, that kind of movement can alter the map, particularly in districts where margins are already tight. The material also referenced anecdotal testimony from a voter who identified as a registered Republican and had previously supported President Trump. The voter cited dissatisfaction with economic conditions, health care access, and immigration enforcement practices. While individual stories do not define an electorate, campaigns often use such testimonials to illustrate broader polling trends when those trends appear consistently across multiple data sets. It is important to clarify what these developments do and do not demonstrate. They do show that Democratic candidates have been able to win special elections in districts that recently leaned Republican at the presidential level. They do show that these victories have sometimes occurred despite fundraising disadvantages. They do show that the margins in several of these races have been substantial. They do not guarantee similar outcomes in future general elections. Turnout dynamics in November presidential or midterm cycles are fundamentally different. Party infrastructure, national advertising, and coordinated voter mobilization efforts are more extensive. Voters who do not participate in special elections often return in larger cycles. However, special elections are among the few measurable indicators available between major cycles. Campaign committees, donors, and party leaders treat them as early signals, imperfect but informative. In Louisiana, the result has already prompted discussion about the competitiveness of districts previously viewed as safe for Republicans. In Texas, the flip of a long-held seat has raised similar questions, particularly in areas that had not elected Democrats for decades. As the 2026 midterms approach, both parties are likely to adjust strategy based on these developments. Republicans may recalibrate messaging on economic issues and voter outreach among working-class constituencies. Democrats may view these contests as evidence that localized campaigns emphasizing community engagement can yield gains even in traditionally conservative districts. Margins matter. Turnout matters. Shifts among key voting blocs, especially non-college voters who have played a decisive role in recent elections, can significantly alter outcomes. For now, the data points to movement. Whether that movement reflects temporary dissatisfaction, special election dynamics, or the beginning of a broader electoral realignment remains to be seen. What is clear is that a series of off-cycle races has introduced new uncertainty into assumptions about the political landscape heading into the next major election cycle.